Hey, what is up, you guys? In case you've been living under a rock, there's been a bit of an outcry again in the Yu-Gi-Oh community around whether or not the game is dying. And so, of course, being the outspoken mouthpiece that I am on this channel, I gotta weigh in. You guys know how it is. Now, you'll probably be a little bit surprised to hear that I don't agree that Yu-Gi-Oh is dying. Or at least I think it's certainly a little bit more complicated and nuanced than that. So, where to start with this? I guess if you've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh long enough, you'll know that people talk about this game supposedly dying pretty much like every other year or so. Konami did something players don't like, whether it's like a bad ban list or a format's gone on too long, or maybe people don't like the most recent product, they feel like the game's too expensive, just little things like that. I say little things, I mean, they're certainly big deals, but as we know, like in 2024, the times when people said that the game was dying in, I don't know, 2016 or something must not have been right, or in 2018, or whenever people, so clearly the game is still around, the game's still doing pretty well, and that means that, well, maybe this time is just more of the same, right? We're just kind of we're whining, we're complaining, we'll get over it, we'll get through it. That certainly has happened, but I do think it's a little bit different this time. All right. The thing I've heard the most about is people talking about Yu-Gi-Oh's prize support relative to other card games. That sort of seems to be the flavor of this complaining season, among other things too. But because other games like Lorcana, like One Piece, and like Pokemon are either giving out cash prizes outright for things like regionals or YCS level events, or just, sort of cards that can be sold much more easily, like serialized cards and signed full art cards and things like that that are worth like thousands of dollars, people kind of take a look at the Yu-Gi-Oh prize support and they feel really disappointed in it. They feel like it's just sort of underwhelming. And admittedly, it's maybe not the best, right? There's stuff like another verse, Lutonia, which is like this vanilla monster, and I don't know how easy or difficult that is to maybe trade or like sell online because it's just not really in high demand. It doesn't feel like a special card, it just feels like a card that exists simply to be a prize card. It's a vanilla otherwise. And you get the kind of like not as exciting stuff like the Nintendo Switch. It's apparently not OLED models. That's really weird. And like mats and stuff. But the Yu-Gi-Oh mats that you get for prizes for like regionals and stuff aren't really like super big on the secondary market. So doing well competitively in Yu-Gi-Oh does not pay. And I guess it would be ideal if it could be a lot more like other games where you get, huge prizes worth thousands and thousands of dollars or maybe even cash directly. So, regarding the cash thing, I'll just say it. We kind of know that Konami cannot do cash prizes. This has actually been confirmed years and years ago. It's just part of their Yu Gi Oh license agreement. Konami does not own Yu Gi Oh! They just have a license to Yu Gi Oh! As part of their deal with Shueisha and the many different companies that own Yu Gi Oh! They can't do cash prizes. It isn't possible. It won't happen unless that gets renegotiated, and I doubt it that it will. We're not getting cash prizes. So maybe the next best thing would be to kind of get like cool, high rarity alt art cards of like staples, like an Ash Blossom. That might be like a really cool prize. But that's not really what I think is the big deal here. Like, it's a big deal if you're a competitive player, if you're like really at the top crust of players, then this does matter to you. But I think that for the average player, how good the Yu Gi Oh! Prizing at like YCS events is doesn't really indicate that the game is like living or dying. It just won't really affect you very much. It could certainly be like an aspirational incentive to play. And so if it doesn't feel like it's going to be worth it, then why should I like continue and play and stuff? But I don't really know that that's held people back. I mean, the thing is, like, top players are kind of going to play really no matter what. I think they play more so for passion and enjoyment of the game and bragging rights. And yes, better prizes would be good. I'm not saying that that's a non issue, but just that I don't really think that it's as related to the Yu Gi Oh! Is dying narrative as maybe people are making it out to be. The second thing people are talking about, of course, is that we are currently in a bit of a tier zero format with Snake Eye. And it feels like really demotivating because we've had YCS events where it's taken a lot of the top spots. It always kind of seems to find its way into the finals, give or take a few exceptions. And we even got a ban list a few months back that did not really seem to tame the Snake Eye deck. If anything, it kind of seemed to just stay just as dominant. So, regarding that, it's hard to say. I mean, I feel like we kind of always don't like the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh. That's just I've played this game for so long now that I don't see anything particularly different here. Like, I don't know that Snake Eye being the best deck really changes someone's like experience at locals or just kind of playing around the house. We still see loads of variety in terms of what decks can like top at regionals and stuff like that. So I don't know that like Snake Eye just being a good deck is like the end of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I mean we've made it through tier elements, we've made it through Kashtira, we've made it through a lot of different like tier zero formats. A side note I'll say about that though is that I do feel that the tier zero formats are kind of like really like ramping up lately. Like we've gotten a lot of them in a row, and that sort of worries me. I made a video the other day about power creep, and I definitely think that like In that video, I talked about kind of the subtle types of Yu-Gi-Oh power creep, but I do think that it's sort of worrying that like we've gone from just tier zero format to tier zero format to tier zero format to tier zero format because we had like Branded and Sword Soul, and then like Power of the Elements came out, and like Sprite and Tier crept that, and then eventually Tier became like kind of this undisputed like tier zero thing. Then immediately Kashtira with a Rise Heart came out and just kind of flushed everything else down the drain. And then we got like a brief respite, but then now we have like Snake Eye and it's tier zero. And I remember like tier zero formats used to kind of happen every few years, but now it feels like they're happening a lot. So I think, that sort of whiplash of going from powerful thing to powerful thing could certainly, cause some harm to the game's longevity. But again, I don't think that that's necessarily going to kill it because people are still going out to these events and playing. We've been getting record numbers of attendance at YCS events for a while now. I think part of that is sort of a rebound of COVID where like people weren't able to go to events at all for like a year and a half or so. And so now like even more people want to go to events, and a lot of these events are breaking records. So clearly people want to get out and play their competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! That much is certain. Even if they don't like a current format, they still play. I literally watch like top level players that I follow on Twitter. They'll be like, yeah, guys, I just kind of went undefeated in this regional and won first place. Hate the format, by the way, but yay. Like, literally, again, I think that the really competitive players are going to play kind of no matter what. Even if they like the format, even if they don't like the format, they'll complain about it, which is totally fine, but they typically still just play it. So I don't think that a really strong deck being dominant is like going to kill Yu-Gi-Oh per se. So you're probably wondering then, since you've kind of talked about these other issues that everyone's talking about, like the best decks and all that stuff, what else is there that like why are you saying you're conflicted? Well, I think that the whole Yu-Gi-Oh is not in a great place argument comes more so down to the local card shop level. And that's something that I'm not sure how many people are really talking about this. I guess they sort of are. Two things. The first thing is that Yu-Gi-Oh products had a really rough year last year in particular. There was a string of products that were very underwhelming. I think of like Duelist Nexus, I think of Legendary Duelist Soul Burning Volcano, and a couple of other sets that's kind of released around that time, like Wild Survivors and stuff that were just underwhelming sets that did not, really resonate with players. The rarity distributions and just like the pull rates and all that stuff really weren't great. And those entire like sealed boxes were selling for really cheap on like the secondary market. The really big losers here weren't actually the players so much as actually the card shops. And that's sort of where the crux of my concerns lies. Because for card shops that are sort of game agnostic and they just kind of, sell like Magic cards, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Lorcana, One Piece, everything else, they have to try to sell these cards to keep the lights on. It's no secret that card shops in general already aren't like super duper profitable in most cases. We've seen lots of local game stores just shut down outright. But the big issue with Yu-Gi-Oh is that card shops typically have to order cards from vendors several months in advance in order to get them. So like when Rarity Collection was announced, which was like kind of the savior set of last year, if a shop had ordered a lot of Rarity Collection and it came in November and stuff, and then you were able to sell it, it was like huge. It was a huge boon, and it kind of saved things at the tail end of the year. But if you ordered a lot of Duelist Nexus or a lot of Soul Burning Volcano because you didn't know if Yu-Gi-Oh players would necessarily like it or how good or bad it would be, because you had to like pre-order it 6 months ahead of time when Konami hadn't announced the set contents yet, then you might have been really burned by that as a shop owner, because we know that players are getting increasingly jaded, I think, about like pull rates and kind of like foil ratios, how good a card is, the value of buying a box or a pack. And so a lot of players actually go into their card shops and don't really buy Yu-Gi-Oh packs. I'm not saying it's the player's fault, like that they have to buy packs or something, but when they don't buy packs from the local shop, then the local shop doesn't make money, and then they just kind of don't want to carry Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. And we've seen a lot of instances of card shops just choosing to stop carrying Yu-Gi-Oh. Some major ones like Strike Zone, like big vendors and stuff, are just like, yeah, we're not gonna like meddle with like Yu-Gi-Oh singles anymore because that market feels like it's kind of unreliable, and just Yu-Gi-Oh sealed product it's not selling the MSRP value of it, or I guess not MSRP, but like the secondary market value of it, its sellability is just really low, and so the products are just sitting on shelves collecting dust. That worries me a lot because when card stores stop stocking Yu-Gi-Oh, then that slowly begins to kind of like choke out a scene, because now you're probably not going to be OTS certified. You're not going to be able to have like sneak peeks and stuff and kind of get cards in circulation. It might be less likely that Yu-Gi-Oh players will even come to said card shop, and it just won't be a Yu-Gi-Oh locale anymore. In a worst case scenario, the card shop itself will close, which again, we have seen that. So for me, that's like the big concern that I have about like Yu-Gi-Oh is that it feels like things have kind of become stratified, where at the top level, at like big competitive events, a lot of people are showing up. We're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of players, even at like regional sometimes, and lots of YCS events. It just feels like at the local level, things are really struggling. The second thing that I'll add to that too is, and I know this is a tired argument, so I promise I hate having to bring it up, and there's not really necessarily a solution like right here and available. Yu-Gi-Oh really could probably use some alternative formats. The advanced format can be wearing. Like I said, there's a lot of whiplash with tier 0 decks and like pricing and all that stuff. And I truly believe that now that I've tried out Magic the Gathering for myself, Magic benefits so much from having like just something like Commander that just it's chill, it's casual, it's something that people can play. And I think that Yu-Gi-Oh could just is in desperate need of something like it. I get it. Konami's kind of trying. They're supporting Time Wizard format. They've been doing Edison reprints. I commend them for it. It is great. I just think that it would be nice to see a more mid-level, like mid-power level format where I can play, you know, a deck like Vanquish Soul, like that's just one of my favorites, or whatever, or maybe Sue Ships or Virtual World, or just any like just mid-power level decks right now, Madolche or something, and not have to worry about Snake Eye, Voiceless Voice, and Tenpai just kind of ruining my entire day. And right now that doesn't exist. I know there's Heart of the Underdog formats, but shops have to make those, so it's tough to kind of have like a unified one. I would love to see something like draft come back. I'm not, you know, crazy enough to think that we'll ever get something like rotation format, but I just think that offering more formats officially would be a really great thing. So, all in all, I would say that I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh is dying. I think it's kind of more so just stagnating. It feels like everything is just sort of slowly compacting. Like if you already play Yu-Gi-Oh, you know what you like. You know why you're here. You know about the competitive stuff. You know like what cards do. You know what the meta is. You know what's up. You're gonna get the cards if you need to compete, and like that's just it's gonna be that. Meanwhile, though, we are playing a game where at the local level, people might feel a little bit like burned out by the rapid fire tier 0 stuff, the card kind of like economy problem where like sealed product isn't like selling really well because it doesn't feel like it's worth buying, and then shops are stocking less of it. And then my final complaint that I always have about this is just the lack of a good onboarding product. I still don't think Yu-Gi-Oh's quite got that nailed down. Since it doesn't seem like we're going to get Rush Duel, then the next best thing is maybe Speed Duel. And as cool as Speed Duel is, it just didn't really stick. Sometimes people blame the marketing of Konami. I sometimes just blame players for not maybe being willing to try it out. It's probably just a mix of both. We know how this goes. So, there's no conclusive thing to this. I don't think that Yu-Gi-Oh is dying. Truly, I don't. I just think it's just stagnant. I think that it's like it's kind of the can's being kicked down the road, and things are like you can feel the temperature in the room kind of rising, the air leaving, but like it's just maintenance right now. Like everything's just it's here, and like we're a little upset with it, but we're just getting by. So, yeah, I hope that this didn't come across as just me like bitching and moaning like I do in most of these videos, but I don't think that it's like bad. Like I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh isn't fun anymore. I still have like fun with the game. I still think a lot of people do, and I think people want it to be good. Like I don't think anyone's like just I'm just quitting because I want to or something like that. I feel like it's just it's rough. We're just riding a rough line. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. I mean, I know that it's a nuanced topic and one that we are limited in our ability to really change. I know Konami knows about all these issues. They're probably trying something out. We'll see how things go just here in these next few months if we get some really cool, exciting announcements or if maybe things, you know, things could change. I don't know. I like to be optimistic, at least in the sense that like I've played through a lot of these past years where people have said Yu-Gi-Oh's dying and it like it's fine, it's still here. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, this video went a little longer than I wanted it to, but hopefully you guys get the gist of what I'm saying. I promise I'm not trying to be a fence sitter with this. I've lived through these, and I know that like Yu-Gi-Oh tends to just come out on the other side of it. Hopefully this time will be the same. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Fast turn.